The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Korner Booth podcast. It is our second episode of the new season of the Korner Booth podcast. Actually, I believe it's our first episode, actually. So, season premiere of our actual Monday episodes. We are actually live on YouTube today because we said, fuck it. I'm out of state. We're recording. I'm outdoors. It's a good time. So, that being said, we got a good group of guys today. The boys are all back. Part one of our NFL preview kicks off tonight. Intern Chris got us rock and roll some great topics. He'll drop by later. Also, if anybody looking for Frank Michael Smith, he will be here in 2 weeks. My man had a scheduling issue, and this is on me and him for not communicating. We're both 28 years old, and we still can't figure out Google Calendar. So that's on both of us. Don't worry about it. Frank will be back. Don't worry. But joining us is the Italian Stallion, the TikTok sensation, the Jets fan, and the just, he's just happy it's football season because his Yankees have been killing him this year. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Ordazzo.
Yeah, when you're a Yankees fan, you're 5 or 6 games under 500, and you're not used to that for the majority of your entirety of your life. It's not a good feeling, but that's just me being a spoiled baseball fan. However, football is here, and according to Aaron Rodgers, and I quote, "I think we're ready, so let's get it going." Season 10. There
you go. Season 10 are officially live, and of course, joining us for his third season with the crew, and his first full football season with us, ladies and gentlemen. Mason Rutch.
Happy to be here, guys.
He knew we were going live, so he got all spiffy.
Hey, Thursday I will pull back up in this same fit.
Thursday I'm rocking it. It'll be the vacation show. So technically I'm already here, but it's cold as shit out tonight because it's overcast and it's like 20-degree winds. So I'm like wearing a long sleeve shirt. I'm just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, no, Thursday I'll be rocking a Hawaiian shirt because that is tis tradition. You don't fucks with tradition. So that being said, also we've got intern Chris hiding in the background, making sure we're on our facts straight. So today is going to be a simple thing. Folks, we break down our NFL preview into 3 things. We do first how we got here. So that is the first step of it. How we got here. We rank the NFL offseason. We see who did the best, who did the worst. The preseason is officially over now as well. And we kind of just go into who looks the best, who looks the worst, big storylines, losers, winners, players, teams, whatever. This show's a little more ad-lib. Thursday's where it gets fun. We're doing a collaboration with the boys at High Low Sports on Thursday, and that'll be fun because not only are we talking record predictions, over-unders, which we did already, we're talking who's winning divisions, who's winning playoffs, it's awards, and then finally – on Tuesday, on Labor Day weekend, we not only are doing our first 6-pack review. By the way, our first 6-pack is on Thursday. So, boys, the 6-pack is back. Matt's got to defend his crown. And then Mason making his debut, and so is intern Chris. So, all that being said, the next three shows are going to be fucking awesome. I cannot promise every Monday show is going to be live. I do like doing them live. 1, because automatically uploads them to YouTube. 2, it is easier for me to edit post-show. That being said, let's get it started. A lot of weird headlines. We'll kind of ease our way into the football coverage because we'll start with Trey Lance. Fellas, he's a Dallas Cowboy. And we'll talk about the NFC East in a little bit, obviously, but Dak Prescott, nobody's had a rougher 12 months than him at least in the NFC East for quarterbacks, right? Because, I mean, besides Carson Wentz, but, like, that doesn't really count because it was kind of a mail-in. He was going to have a rough time. But Dak kind of got given the shaft a little bit right now because now you're bringing in a quarterback who has all this raw potential. You trade a 4th-round pick for him. And I could be overrating this, and he could just be just another backup. Or Jerry Jones, being Jerry, is trying to see if he can develop this kid in a year with his system and then throw him out next year when they let that go. Fellas, what do you think of my theory?
I mean, that makes the most sense. I'm still confused by it because they were just talking about they're working on an extension with Dak. And they're saying that this isn't going to affect their extension talks with Dak. So if you do extend him for another however long period of time, then Trey Lance is just going to be a glorified backup for the next 8 fucking years of his career. Kind of like how Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be that way if they never got rid of him, except they sent him to a team where they can use him, where the Niners sent him to a team where he's going to sit. Now, my confusion is also I think Cooper Rush is a very serviceable backup quarterback, so I felt like they had that for them. So he's not coming to be the backup because Cooper Rush showed that he can win games last year, and they're talking about extending Dak. So I guess this is a developmental thing for him. Maybe Dak gets hurt, he steps in a little bit, but I mean, your theory makes sense. Maybe something goes down with Dak this season, gets hurt, and they throw him out there. They see what they do. Maybe they give him another year or two on the team, but I'm a little puzzled by this move. It doesn't make too much sense to me.
Mace, what do you think about Trey Lance coming to your state of Texas?
Yeah, I just think that this is another kind of Jerry Jones gamble that is not going to pan out well. We saw this with Ezekiel Elliott taking him 4th overall in that draft. What was that? Was that
2016?
Okay, yeah. Either 16 or 17, one of the two. I couldn't remember. But yeah, just banking on the and I will say, look, they didn't give up much for him, so the risk is pretty low. A 4th-round draft pick, Trey Lance is a former first-rounder. He's incredibly raw. And I think part of the Niners being open to moving off of him has to do with the fact that they are in a Super Bowl winning window, or at least contending window. I know we can all agree with that. The rest of the roster, I think we would all agree, is capable of winning a Super Bowl. But the quarterback position is very much up in the air for them. And so, hey, you get a 4th-rounder for a guy that you feel like is not going to be ready anytime soon, at least not on the same page as the rest of this squad, right? By the time that Trey Lance is developed. So, for the Niners, it's a good move. You get a 4th-round pick for, a guy who's probably not going to end up playing for you anytime soon. And if you're Dallas, you have another option after Dak Prescott is out of town and down the road. And so you give yourself something to kind of look forward to in the future, something for fans to kind of pay attention to. And if all else goes to shit, you do have Trey Lance. We know he's capable. We know he's really raw, but hey, we know he's a dual threat. He can run. He's got an arm on him. And so if, they can develop him in the right way, there's no reason to believe that he can't excel. So it's interesting. I don't know what to make of it quite yet, but I don't really think it has any sort of relevancy now or like in the next year.
I think it only will become relevant if Dak starts chucking picks again. I think that's when it becomes relevant. If Dak starts struggling, this becomes relevant. It's that old saying, don't go looking for trouble, no trouble will come looking for you. Dak starts chucking picks, now we have trouble for Dak. And so, yeah, like you said, Cooper Rush, or I think Matt said Cooper Rush, one of you said it, right? But here's the biggest kicker about this is that when you really look at the whole Cowboys thing, everyone say it was Cowboys year. I'm like, nothing has changed. They just shape-shifted backup running backs, basically. You added Gilly Lock, but here's the problem. He's old. He ain't P-Pat. Pat Peterson is a genetic freak. I want to see Gilmore run stride for stride with Devontae or Terry McLaurin or A.J. Brown or even just Jalen Hyatt, like who's a fucking Olympic sprinter. So that's just the East. So my biggest concern now is, okay, what's gotten better? And this just adds more fuel to the fire of chaos. So, I don't know. Cowboys found a way to cowboy before the season even started. So, all right. Well, better news is Josh Jacobs finally signed a 1-year deal, $12 million. Falling similar to Saquon, got a $1 million bump over him. I mean, I would have loved for Josh to get a better, maybe a more length on deal because he was their offense last year. But this is kind of par for the course with not paying the running backs, and I think the best he could have done at the point. But Vegas has their offense, fellas.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough for these running backs because now it seems like everybody, like you have Saquon, you have Josh Jacobs, you have Dalvin Cook, you have Ezekiel Elliott. You have all these guys that are playing on one-year prove-it deals when they're all established running backs in the league, playing on one-year deals. And it's just a high risk, high reward for them, but it's low risk for that team because like Josh Jacobs signs a 1-year, $12 million deal. Let's say he, don't want to speak anything into existence. He gets hurt within the first handful of weeks of the season. The Raiders are like, all right, well, that's why we gave him a 1-year deal, and they move on from him. Then Zaire White comes in, and then they draft or sign somebody else next year. So it's interesting how, I was listening to WFAN not too long ago, and Tiki Barber mentioned something about the height of his career with the Giants. He was making excess amount of money a year, and he pulled up the most recent NFL contract for a running back, and it was very similar to what he was making, maybe his career high earning of like 10 plus years ago. So the market has not increased like it has for a quarterback who was probably making $20 million. Yeah. So I feel for these running backs only playing on these 1-year deals, but it's tough because like Saquon, Josh Jacobs, anybody goes down, and that team's going to be quick to just move on from them, and they'll probably never see a multi-year millions of dollar contract like that again.
And so to Saquon and Josh Jacobs' credit, their offense would never be the same. Here's to say, like in Philadelphia, they were able to replace Miles Sanders with 2 different running backs, right? JT up in Indy, they're not replacing him. They're not replacing him. Jacobs out in Oakland or Las Vegas. They're not replacing Saquon in New York. Let's be honest. You're going to tell me Matt Breida and Wayne Gallman are going to do that? No. So, that being said, there needs to be a balance. Obviously, we won't do the running back debate again because that was just getting ridiculous. But this was good for the Raiders because now they actually have something, at least a bell cow to kind of get this offense rolling because Jimmy G needs at least one decent running back to not be terrible. So there you go. That's the only way I really can look at it. I think that when you go through the whole shtick of everything, but all right. We got MLB news quick, and then we're going to jump right into NFL. Y'all ready for this?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is obviously old news at this point. It came out like Thursday or Friday after we finished up. Ohtani's is his UCL shot. So he's gonna hit, but no more pitching for us the year. The Mets reportedly likely to trade Pete Alonso this offseason because if they haven't burned enough, they're gonna burn more. And last but not least, the Rays-Yankees rivalry has been reborn. Matt, I know you have more on that. You take the lead.
It's just like at the worst time because it's just one of those teams is in any sort of contention of doing anything relevant this year. But it's I don't know. The Yankees, they had one of their relief pitchers on the mound. I think it was Abreu. Threw a pitch inside at a Rosarina, and it wasn't meant to hit him. You could tell by the pitch. It was an inside pitch that just curved right into him. Benches cleared. It was calmed down. Then it was just reborn. He got to third base or something like that, and he was drawing off to the pitcher, and the benches cleared a second time. So now there's heat, and the rivalry seems to be kind of rebirthing back in this season. And then you've got Brandon Lau coming out pretty much speaking the truth, but at the same time, I'll have a rebuttal to it, but pretty much saying we're a team in contention where every game matters to us. The Yankees are a team that are out. These games don't matter to them. The season's just going by. They're just waiting until September pretty much comes up. So he's pretty much saying like they're not worth our time, pretty much, which is true. I mean, the Yankees are not going anywhere. However, what have the Rays done since they've been a franchise as well? They have the lowest payroll every year. They get to the playoffs. They can win the division. They can win the wild card. They can get into the playoffs, but they don't do anything. They went to the World Series in 2020 during the fucking COVID Bowl, and they lost to the Dodgers. So I understand what he's saying, but the Rays don't really have a leg to stand on if you want to talk about what this franchises have done in their past. But rebirthing the rivalry, I assume the next time we play them, I am going to expect a heated game. But like every team so far, they've been getting the best of us.
Very true. All right, y'all ready for this? I'm not gonna play the music. I don't have that teed up. NFL preview part 1. How we got here. So this is simple, folks. We're gonna talk about who the winners, the losers, who improved the best, who's going to fall off. We'll start rolling through it quick. So, fellas, who had the best offseason? I'll start with that one. We'll start with the big cheese. Who had the best offseason from like March 1st through today, August 28th? Who has had the best offseason in your opinion?
I mean, we're talking like a free agency draft, everything.
Signings.
If you want to, I know who you're going to say, Matt. So if you want me to go first, I can go ahead. Is that chill?
Yeah, you go first.
So I think this is pretty underrated. I don't know how many people are going to share the same kind of idea with me, but I think the Seattle Seahawks, they had by far the best draft to me. They added a premier receiver to an already excellent group. And then they added Witherspoon to a great secondary that is already loaded. I guess they did not address the main issue that was the biggest problem for them on defense, their D-line, which will probably continue to kill them next year. But look, they upgraded in several positions. They drafted well. This season is really going to come down to whether or not Geno Smith can elevate his game and replicate what he did last season. But look, I think in terms of the future, whether you move off Geno or not, now you're still a great team. You're still in that wild card hunt. I don't think they're in the Super Bowl mix, but they had a fantastic draft. They re-signed Geno. They helped out the running back room by adding Charbonnet. Ken Walker's great. So, look, I think they're a surprise team that if things go their way, maybe they find themselves in an NFC Championship. You never know.
I like the Seattle take. I do, and Matt, I kind of know where you're going with this one. I'm probably
I don't think you do. I'm actually going to not be biased.
Okay,
I'm actually going with your team. I'm
going
with Philadelphia Eagles
and honestly, Matt, funny enough, that was my other pick. I thought the Eagles had a great draft.
No, I mean,
it's
I don't.
Draft, free agency, it's off season, it's everything. But
I acknowledge that my team made some big splashes, but if you really break it down, Alan Lazard was the biggest, free agency signing you got. Besides, before you get to post draft, pre-draft, it was Alan Lazard. Then you get to the draft. You have a good draft, but you got a bunch of guys that you just didn't know. You didn't know Will McDonald was going to be a good pick in the middle of the first round. Everybody thought that was a reach kind of thing. He's got the speed. He's got the spin move. So what I'm trying to get at is that we made our impact leader in the year with Rodgers and Cook, but the Eagles are a team that were just in the offseason when the free agency first started, they were just losing guys, and everybody was like, "Oh, the Eagles are done. They're not going to repeat." They lost Hargreave. They were losing Sanders. They were losing secondary guys. They lost Slay for a few days until they brought him back, but they were losing some decent pieces in that team. And they bring Slay back. They bring Bradbury back. They go out and they have one of the best drafts that I think I've seen a GM have in recent years by getting all of the guys from Georgia. Keely Ringo. You get the Nolan Smith and
the Rhino Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and Jalen Carter. And all of a sudden, and they make a 7th round trade for DeAndre Swift. And all of a sudden, this team goes from looking like, a shell of their self from last year with all the departures to like they had the most insane draft ever. And all of a sudden, boom, they're back into contention. They're back to being favorites for the division, favorites to go back to the Super Bowl for the NFC. And it was all because of Howie. Now they're talking about a Jonathan Taylor possible addition if that were to happen. If that were to happen, that to me just tops it off as like, what team could possibly top
the crowded running back room as it is, man. I know Howie's ballsy, but I don't think he's stupid.
Well, the Jets just waived Zonovan Knight, so if you put in a claim for him, you can add him to your group. But I got to go with
that's like an Indianapolis Colts thing to do at this point.
Oh, yeah. But I got to go with and a non-biased take, I really got to go with the Eagles. I mean, that was one of the most masterful drafts.
Well, this is why we've been friends for so long. My non-biased take is the New York Jets. Listen, you solve your biggest problem, which was your fucking quarterback. You go get Aaron Rodgers. And Hard Knocks, as much as they bitched and moaned about it, it's been amazing. I am rooting for the Jets. Like, this is a great thing for them PR-wise. And They get fucking Dalvin Cook, and they have a good draft. And I'm just sitting there like, the Jets combined with everything from headlines to free agency to draft, they hit the most balance. I like Seattle's, but I wish they went and got the D-line. I like Philadelphia's, but that was kind of expected. They lost Hargrave. They lost Epps. They lost Gardner Johnson, Sanders, Sayamalu. I'm not like there's a lot of things. Like, we're banking the Kobe and TJ Edwards. We're banking that Kobe Dean is a Pro Bowl linebacker. And Zach Cunningham can find his 2020 form. But with the Jets, they already had an amazing defense. Their offense is meh, but they went out and got an alignment in free agency. And then on top of all that, they go get one of the top 5 best quarterbacks of all time, talent-wise. Stats-wise, true. Titles, maybe not. But still, like, Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback all time, in my opinion. He's 5, but he's still top 5. And the Jets have, and the way the buzz around the Jets is right now is wild. Because the Jets have always been the lovable losers of the East Coast. We root for them. You can't hate on them too much. They're good people. The Jets fans are good people. But, like, you know, you always feel bad because they got to deal with those losers in the blue and red, right? Now, they're the talk of the town. And everyone's like, oh, the Giants are under the radar. I'm like, okay, let's hold up, guys. You still have Danny Dimes, the vanilla Vic, Mr. Stumble in the open field is your quarterback. The Jets, on the other hand, it's like, I don't think y'all are scared enough about them. Like, Miami is going to be fun because they can score a shit ton of points, and they have a good pass rush, but that's all making sure that Tua's head stays screwed on, right? Tyree and Jalen Wall get hurt, yada, yada. They already lost half their defensive secondary, right? Buffalo, everyone's picking them to win the division. I'm looking around, I'm like, they didn't do anything over the offseason. They stayed the same, except for getting another tight end. Congrats. It's not really going to do anything. Like, if the Dolphins have an amazing season, Buffalo could finish in 3rd. And the worst part about that is Mason's Patriots will probably finish like 9-8 or 10-7 and be in 4th place. And that's how that division is going to roll this year. But I think the Jets, it's just they had the best offseason on paper in all 3 facets.
Yeah, just to add to your point quickly, Jared, I think, you know, look, they addressed the quarterback problem, but it was more than that. And I think Jets fans pick up on that. When you add a guy like Rodgers that has experience in winning, experience in being the face of a franchise, experience in playing big games and winning them, right? That gives every other player on the roster that belief that, oh man, you know, we are capable. We can win. You know, everybody's kind of sleeping on us, overlooking us. And it's like, well, hey, we've got AR, right? Who's to say that we can't, you know, prove all these haters wrong, prove all these doubters wrong, and, you know, make a run. I don't think that the Super Bowl is, you know, I don't think that should be the expectation. But like you're saying, Jared, there's no reason this team isn't in the mix to win the division. And if you win the AFC East, you win the best division in the AFC. I think we can all agree on that. So it's like, hey, you win the AFC. Why can't you make a deep run in the playoffs? So adding Aaron Rodgers is awesome for the Jets. It's a huge move for the NFL because he goes to one of the biggest markets in the game, if not the biggest. But it adds something to the Jets in a sort of off the field sense that cannot be underestimated, right? It's kind of similar to the move that when Brady joined the Bucs, right? You know, Brady was on his last leg of his career, but it brought professionalism, you know, that winning mentality, that mindset of, hey, we've got Tom on the squad. Tom is manning the ship. Nothing is impossible. We can do anything with this guy on our team. And I think Rodgers, you know, adds that to the Jets. An already, you know, stacked roster, right, on both sides of the football.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm waiting for Chris's reaction to see what he says his best offseason was. Here's the crazy thing, right? So every year there's always like that one team's like, oh, do they actually like? Do they is one of our teams not going to be like on here, right? I think all three of the teams we picked are going to make the playoffs. There is, I think, so Chris took Birds, Jets are obvious ones, but he said the Bears are one we overlooked. Chris, I agree with you, but there's one issue I have. It's that who's taking the snap under center. And also, they didn't fix their fucking O-line, which is why they are probably going to be my biggest flop. So we'll lead into it. Biggest flop. A team with big expectations who had a good offseason.
Just to add to that Bears point real quick, Jared, before we move on in this segment, it's like the thing with the Bears is like, yeah, they improved, but it's like, how many additional wins is that going to translate to? 1 to 2, maybe 3. It's like they're still finishing last in the division. They're still terrible. And the jury is not out on Fields. Fields is a great runner. He's a dual threat, but his passing is just awful. And it doesn't take an idiot to see that. So I think the Bears are still kind of dependent on whether or not Justin Fields is going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. More than anything at this point.
I think one bright spot with that quarterback room too is that Bagent kid looked pretty good in the preseason. So if they can't, strike lightning on a bottle with Justin Fields after this year, I mean, give that kid some time to play because he looked very good in the preseason. So it's definitely something I'd like to see him, in the pros. But I agree. I mean, Justin Fields he has potential to be what Lamar is. But I don't know if he's going to put that together. I mean, I've seen progression in some senses. I've seen senses where I don't really think he's made much of a difference from the past year.
I want to see him sling it. I want to see him have a game where he sits back and has that Jalen Hurts versus the Tennessee Titans game where he just lets it rip the entire first half.
And I think we saw that with Lamar. We saw that rookie year. Right. And people want to hate on the passing statistics for Lamar, but it's like, if you go and look, it's there. It's 100% there. And that's not, we all know that's not his go-to, right? That's not his first option. His first option is his legs, but he is capable. It's still not, we're still unsure whether or not Justin Fields is efficient, qualified enough to pass the ball, at that level for a starting NFL quarterback.
Past 25 yards. That's my line with him, basically.
Yes. Time will tell.
My other flop, I think it happened. I mentioned Murray's Miami Dolphins because they are gambling on everything hitting correctly. Now, if they hit it correctly, they're a Super Bowl contender. But the problem is you got to bank that Tua stays healthy and plays well. You got to bank that Jalen Ramsey gets back in time. And you got to hope that there's no other injuries on that defense because that is a stretched thin unit. So they're the other team who had a big offseason where I'm kind of just like, I mean, fellas, like there's a lot of scotch tape and spit holding this together right now.
Yeah, if I'm thinking of a flop, it's a team that they didn't really have any sort of eye-opening offseason, but they did two big things. They traded up in the second round to get the possible quarterback of their future, and they signed probably the hottest free agent wide receiver of this offseason, and that's the Tennessee Titans. They move up for, Mayo Man, Hellman's fucking endorsement lifetime deal, Will Levis. And they sign DeAndre Hopkins to a multi-year deal in free agency. Obviously, Tannehill is probably going to be the starting quarterback for that team right now. But, I mean, if you really put it on paper, like, you have that Okonkwo tight end, you have Burks and Hopkins and Derrick Henry and Tannehill. That's an offense that should be probably like in the 15th range if all pans out. But it's just a team where if one person goes down, if Hopkins goes down, if Tannehill goes down, if you have to put Malik Willis in, you have to put Will Levis in too early, if you lose Derrick Henry, that is just a team that's going to flop because that's one team that does not address the defense. They always go into the season with a weak defense, and it just takes one player on offense for them to flop. And that Tennessee Titans would be mine. They're one injury away from it.
Fair enough. I can't hate that. Mace, what you got?
You know where I'm going with this. It's got to be my New England Patriots. Look, this was a pivotal offseason for my guys. Barely missed the playoffs last year. Had the opportunity at multiple points in the season to qualify for the playoffs. Came down to the last game of the season where they gave up 2 kickoff returns, a punt return and a kickoff return. And I think lost the game by like 14 points or 10 points against the Bills. And I think it was very clear how the Patriots needed to upgrade the squad and where the issues were within the roster. And they went completely unaddressed. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Patriots were going to be in Super Bowl contention if they added DeAndre Hopkins, or if they took Jackson Smith and Jigba, or if they took Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers. That's not putting them in the mix for the Super Bowl, but it is putting them in the mix for wild card 100%. And so I think it was a complete flop. Your quarterback is lacking, and that's because he doesn't have adequate skill around him. And it's going to be very evident on the playing field in a couple of weeks when they are just getting outplayed because Mac has no one to throw the football to. So to me, that's so clear cut. There's nobody who had a worse kind of more underwhelming offseason than the New England Patriots.
Nah, fair enough. Listen, honestly, and I feel bad. You're one of those Patriots fans who actually takes it on the shins and just doesn't run away from like, oh, it's college football season. I don't care about the NFL anymore. It's like, okay. Like, I'm an Eagles fan, whether we go 0-17 or 17-0. It doesn't fucking matter.
Man.
Yeah, you're.
Hey, that's how it works with any team.
I've been on a Timberwolves fan since like 2001. I suffered for 11 years. Gee, it's like, dude, like
that's how true fandom goes, man. You're with them through the ups. You're with them through the downs, man. It's like I've said multiple times on this show that it's like I can remember going to watch Astros games with my dad's where there were 5,000 people in the ballpark. And
I remember back the last 3 years.
Right.
I relate.
And so this is how it goes, right? Like, they'll be back at some point. Who knows when that is, but happens to every fan, right?
Habit of being cyclical, unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
5,000 people in attendance at Astro games. That was what we call the glory days.
That was a long time ago, Matt. That was when my dad had to drag me to games. When it was just like, please, Dad, do not make me go.
They're not gonna. No matter how good or bad they do, they're not. It's not going to be like that for anytime soon. They're going to be selling that stadium out.
Oh yeah.
Which team is your surprise team that's going to make the biggest leap? They're going to go from like a 4-12 team to a like 10-7, 11-6. AKA Seattle. Who's this year's Seattle? That's gonna just make the biggest fucking like what the shit.
And I'm assuming just before you go, Matt. I mean, so we can't say Detroit, right? Detroit
was right there.
Okay, all right. So I won't say Detroit
because we know what Detroit
because I think Detroit could win like 13, 14 games, man.
I think they could too. Their hardest game in their schedule, I believe, is an AFC East team, middle of the season. Don't quote me on that. I have to look at their schedule again. But they have like one hard game in the middle of the season, and then it's a bunch of like, So they'll probably lose like 4 games. But like we're talking about Detroit being a 2 seed.
Hey, they'll lose their opener to KC. We know that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, watch them like do like what like the Chiefs did to New England a couple years ago and stomp them on prime time.
I mean,
Chris Jones was fucking real. I'm like, we gotta acknowledge that like Chris Jones, that man is that defense's motor, and he's not there. That defense is mediocre at best.
I got one team that comes to mind that last year they were. I don't. I could be wrong. I want to say they were at least a 7-win team, maybe 6-7 win team. Over the years, they funneled through about 4 to 5 different types of quarterbacks, and they finally locked one up this year for the long term. I'm going with the Saints. I think the Saints will be this year's surprise team. Last year, they were just the middle of the pack. Like, we did the best we could. We had Andy Dalton throwing the ball for us. Now you have Derek Carr. You got Chris Olave. You got Michael Thomas coming back. They've got Jamal Williams, who led the league in touchdowns last year as a backup running back, filling in until Kamara comes back. They got Kendre Miller back there. And they always have at least the top 12 defense. They always have a very serviceable, solid defense that keeps them in the games. And I think they can be a very high-powered offense this year with a nice balance of offense and defense. And I really think the Saints are going to run away with that division down the NFC South. That's going to be my team. That's going to be that, like, last year they were in that, like, low-end, middle-of-the-pack team, and they're going to just bust it out this year. I think they're going to take that division with ease, and we'll see what they do into the playoffs. But I got the Saints this year's bounce-back team or something.
I'm saying the NFC South as well, but mine's a little different because mine was a team that made the playoffs last year, but they lost everything. That'd be the Buccaneers. Like, Baker Mayfield has some dudes around him. And they can. I know your displeasure for Todd Bowles is well documented, Matt. I kind of look at like they could easily win 9 games and like punch because they're a lot more physical than what New Orleans is banking that everything else is a dumpster fire, right? Listen, Derek Carr is going to be great. Kendre Miller is going to be awesome. That's why I picked him for our Korner Booth team, Matt. But the biggest thing is that we are banking that New Orleans, their defense keeps their youth and they keep it's. I don't know, man. There's a lot of question marks that team there. Everyone's assuming they're going to walk right in, but Carolina's going to win some of those like what the fuck because they're young games, and then you have Tampa who's going to do their thing, and Atlanta has a great running attack, and we really haven't seen if Desmond Ridder is bad, good, mediocre, whatever. Like this could turn into one of those divisions where everyone is just eating each other. A la 2020 NFC East. Mace, who's your surprise team?
I was gonna say Pittsburgh. I don't know if you guys are gonna let that fly.
Can he sling it?
Yeah, I'm saying Najee is a bounce back year. I think he returns to the way that he was. 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
I think Pickett has a lot more confidence under center, and he knows that it's his job, and he knows that it's going to be his job for a while, and they're going to, figure it out with him. And I think Pickens is going to be, he's going to be pretty formidable, man. Like that dude is tough.
NFL young boy.
And look, they've always got a great defense. They're always hanging around in these in-division games against the Ravens, against the Browns, against the Bengals. So, I don't expect them to come out here and win the division, but I think they could easily win 9 or 10 games.
Fair. I mean, listen, like what I saw in the preseason, they're one of those teams when we talk about like what's gone forward so far, like the very vague topics we're doing today, like the Steelers were like a different offense in the preseason. I was a little like, that's Pittsburgh? Oh shit. Like this is the same team who scored like 7 points a game last year. Okay. I'm a big GP boy. I love George Pickens. Like I was kind of ticked we didn't take him last year, but then again we went and got AJ Brown. So it's okay. But I'm a big George Pickens guy. I think also that defense just reloaded. They didn't really lose anybody. So I also like Sam Allen on offense. I think Pittsburgh, like we may have Cleveland finishing last place again, and they may have a record of like 7-9 or 7-10, and it's gonna be hilarious. Like they're gonna be like the best 7-10 team you ever seen, but it's because you have 3 teams that are better in that division. I like it.
The Browns will go as far as Deshaun Watson will take them, and it's
what are the rules you put in the drinks? Wait, sorry, wrong.
Well,
sorry. The Bill Cosby jokes caught up. I got him confused for a second.
If this is Deshaun Watson from the last 6 games of last season, they're heading for a 7-9 at best win season. But if he can somehow get as close to possible as like 2019 Deshaun Watson, then they're going to be a serious force.
2020 be what?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, fellas, now we're going into the final 2 topics today. Today was going to be obviously a little bit of a shorter show because we're kind of just like relaxing. And also, y'all love the light right now. I got like a campfire vibe out here right now.
Just think of that, whatever that old Motel 8 commercial was, where it's like, we'll leave the light on for you. And it's just a little light right behind your head.
I also have a light literally blasting in my face. So, like, my vision past 10 yards is shot right now. But, hey, listen, anything to get a good shot, right? All right. Now your team that's going to just fall off. The playoff team that you're like, wait, what happened? Like, Seattle 2 years ago. Not the Cowboys. I'd say Denver. Like, just teams that, like, it becomes a train wreck early and often. It stays that way. Same, brother. I'm running 4 hours of sleep right now.
Yeah.
I got an easy one if you need some time, Matt.
Yeah, hit it, Mace.
Yeah, you go first.
The Vikes, man. I think they're going to fall off a freaking cliff. This is the reason that I didn't take. I had the number 1 overall pick in my league with my OU guys, and I didn't take Justin Jefferson because I feel like Kirk is going to fall off a mountain, and there's just no way that he's repeating what he did last year, aka his best statistical year ever in his career.
It was the most forgettable 13-3 season of all time.
Yes. And their defense was awful. Their defense was like literally the worst passing defense in the league. Like one of the worst passing defenses like I think we've seen in a while. I'm talking 5, 10 years, 15 years maybe. And so the only reason that they won that division is because they were slinging it around like nobody's business. And I just think that when you're down in games like that, you obviously got to throw. We all – what game was that where they came back from like – what was it, like 28 down?
33-0.
Yeah. So there's a perfect example, right? Like I just think that they're going to fall off a cliff. The Lions are winning that division. And it's – maybe they sneak in as a wild card team, but it's like – exactly like you said, Jared. They're not winning 14 games next year. Bring it back down to like 11 or 10 max. 12 if they get lucky.
I think they could go. They can have 7 wins. Because here's the problem. Honestly, when you stack up that roster, they're the worst team in that division. Because you have the Lions who are loaded 53 through. Honestly, they have the 3rd best quarterback in the conference. So yeah, no, I will say. Jared Goff is like they're the best team in that conference or division. Excuse me. And then they have Jordan, like the Packers, like Jordan Love's look good in camp. And then you have the Bears who have like this amazing offseason. Who's not to say like the Lions kind of run away and then the other 3 kind of beat up on the Vikings. The other 2 beat up on the Vikings. Like they don't play defense. What was their biggest calling card? They like re-signed like a linebacker, like shit, like it wasn't good. Wait, didn't they brought back to Darius Smith, right? Wait, no, the Browns have him. Well, yeah, no. My biggest fall off this year will be the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go personal and go the Niners.
They're still going to win 11 games.
That's a good one, Jared. I like that pick a lot.
I like the Dallas Cowboys, but the problem is, like roster-wise, like no, I don't like them as an actual team. They didn't answer any questions. I mean, they still could have a good defense with Gilly Lock, but you're saying a cornerback who naturally gets burned and who's Devontae Smith's son and Trayvon Diggs, and you have Gilly Lock who's going to try to cover AJ Brown. Like, it's not a great combination. And yes, Dak has a great record against Eagles quarterbacks not named Nick Foles. Here's the problem. Hurts didn't play in that second game where we would have mollywopped him if he played. Anyway, I think the Cowboys are going to still win like 8 or 9 games, but they're going to slide because they're going to lose a lot of close games, and we're going to hear a lot of Dak Trey chat. Because Dak is not going to stop throwing interceptions. That's it. That's literally what it comes down to. And they're going to miss Zeke for one situation. Punching that ball in. He gave that offense a physicality that they do not have anymore. Tony Pollard, I don't fear Tony Pollard as an Eagles fan. Chris remembers this. He's fumbled like 4 times against Philadelphia in his career. And it's hilarious. Zeke was the one who always butchered us. So, that being said, Deuce Vaughn is shorter than me, Chris, Matt, and Mason. He weighs $145. Zeke Elliott's making jokes about him leaving his baby cleats in the locker room. Yo, that's funny, but who's gonna move the sticks? Because Tony Pollard ain't gonna do it. I don't know. I think the Cowboys made a grave mistake not trying to restructure Zeke's deal. So that was my team.
So I'm going to stick with my own division, but I'm actually going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think are going to be the fall-off team this year. You look at, they lost Brian Dable, and who I think was the reason why Josh Allen became who Josh Allen has been the last handful of years. You lose Brian Dable, and then you play last season out, and I personally felt like Allen's accuracy kind of decreased slightly. His turnover rate increased. Then they lose Leslie Frazier, steps down as defensive coordinator. They don't really make any major additions on defense to make up for what they lost. They bring in a tight end in the draft, and they don't really address anything on the offense. They still have the same run game as last year. They've got a disgruntled receiver in Stephon Diggs, who's every year contemplates wanting out. Yeah. But nevertheless, they still go into every offseason with that because they keep choking in the playoffs, and then Diggs has his moments, and I think they're one playoff choke away from him wanting out of Buffalo. But I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're going to still be like a 10-11 win type team. They're going to compete for that division, but I don't think they're going to be the scary Buffalo Bills of years past when they had Dable and Josh Allen was just on another level, and I just saw a little bit of a regression in his stats last season. I think that's going to carry into this year. So I'm going to go bold and take the Buffalo Bills as a fall-off team.
All right. Now we're going to bring in the intern, Chris, because now we've all hit our picks. We're about the last 5 minutes of the show. Chris, you said the Colts in the comments. I want to hear this explanation because the Colts were ass last year. So what's going to be the change?
I was just answering Mason's question earlier.
Okay. All right, so that's me misreading the comments. But you think there any way we missed in all these topics? Any team that you think we just kind of airmailed over and didn't think about?
Well, I actually had the same pick as Mason for the fall off with the Vikings. I just think with the Vikings, it's kind of like, it's going to depend on Kirk winning big games because, I know they lost a little bit of the backfield last offseason. They just lost Pat Pete. He had a good season with them. But like you guys were saying, like the Vikings might just win like 7, maybe 8 games. Like they just don't. Last year, everything really came down to, like a one, just winning like on the drive and kind of like Kirk being like the hero. But watching like Kirk throughout like his career, it's kind of like he's kind of like a middle tier quarterback. So I feel like a lot of pressure is going to be on him, especially since they were, I think, the 3rd seed in the NFC last year. They hosted a playoff game. They lost to the Giants. Like that's just not a good look for them. So, Vikings going to be my big fall off.
No, fair. All right. So we're coming to the end of the show. Definitely a quicker show today, but honestly, it was a good, efficient show. Who has the second worst record in football? Because we all know the Cardinals are going to be number 1, or at least close to it. Who is that team? Last year it was the it was the Bears, right? The Bears, like nobody thought the Bears were gonna have the worst record in football. Everyone thought it was gonna be like Houston or Arizona, right? Who is that team? Who is that team that's just gonna nosedive so hard from mediocrity to ass that they're in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes?
It's got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be the Indianapolis Colts. And I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I really think he is a project quarterback that really needed that year to sit out because it's 50-50. It's either going to be he gets thrown into the Wolves and he's going to succeed after this year. He's going to be like, all right, now I know what it takes to be in the NFL and I'm going to excel, or he's going to crumble under the pressure. I think even though it was Gardner Minshew, I think he just needed to sit for that first year. They don't have the running game right now. I don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor, if they're going to trade him or not. They got Michael Pittman, but outside of Michael Pittman, who's a glorified number 2 wide receiver to me, they got no receiver 1. They got no receiver 3. Defense is always shows up and is usually a tough, scrappy defense. I just don't see it this year with that team. I don't see how they win more than 5 or 6 games, if that. So for me, it's got to be the Colts. I think that'll finish second in worst record in the league.
Fair enough. Mace, who's your number 2 pick?
Number 2 pick for, I'm sorry,
the NFL draft. Who's picking second behind the Cardinals next year?
Remember,
remember,
I think
guys,
it's going to be Tampa, man. I think it's going to be Tampa. I think they're going to be. Look, you guys know. Look, I'm a homer. I love OU. I think Mayfield is awesome for everything he did for us, but I think they are going to find out a few games through the season that he is not cut out to be a starter, and they're going to bring in Trask, and he's not going to be any better whatsoever. And they are going to be in the spot where there is just no incentive for them to succeed right now during this season. And so they are going to start to tank, and they're going to make a move for Drake May.
Fair enough. Fellas,
apparently
I'm under fire by the geese, man. We're under attack. All right, fellas. Chris, you're the last one, obviously. Who do you think is going to be the number 2 pick this year?
I think I'm going to go with the Commanders. I'm going to go with the Commanders because they had a big QB competition last year between Wentz and Heineke. And, Heineke ended up taking over because Wentz was atrocious. And they won a lot of the games because of Heineke. And now they don't have him anymore, so they're kind of, still trying to figure out who the QB is. I know they have Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, but maybe Brissett comes in, wins them 3-4 games. He's not terrible, but at the same time, they have a couple playmakers on offense, McLaurin, Gibson, and Brian Robinson, but you're in the NFC East. The Eagles are great. The Giants had a good season last year, and the Cowboys were, pretty good. But obviously, I think the Cowboys are going to fall off a little bit, but it's just going to be luck of the draw. So I think the Commanders are just going to go downhill.
Anybody else thinking that maybe the Broncos could be it? Like Russ could be seriously still fucking bad, and Sean could have enough and just bench him and just take the L's and go get a top 5 to top 3 pick and maybe move up or whatever. Broncos another team that could be sniffing around that. The only other one pops out in my head is Houston. No, I don't Matt brought up, but Tennessee. They got a quarterback last year. They could go up and get either another quarterback, or if Will Levis is terrible because they've drafted 2 years in a row, might as well go for 3, right? Or they could go up and get one of these top defensive line guys like the kid out of Alabama or that or Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting going forward. But gentlemen, it's been a pleasure tonight. Shout out to Matt, Mason, and intern Chris. Shout out to our sponsors, Mahler Bros, official sponsor of the Korner Booth Podcast and Belly Sports. Promo code Belly for 15% off. Our friends over at Canadives, promo code BELLYUP20 for 20% off. And SeatGeek, promo code BELLYUP for $20 off your first purchase. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I will see you Thursday for part 2 of the vacation series and our Corner Booth preview. I mean, NFL Corner Booth preview. Sorry, I'm like falling asleep right now. We will see you guys on Thursday. Enjoy your night. If you missed the show, the live recording, the audio recording will be live on podcasts and Spotify and everything else tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. So enjoy. Folks, have a good night. And fellas, always a pleasure.